That midnight thirst pulled this 74-year-old body of mine out of bed. I slipped quietly down to the kitchen, careful not to disturb Ryan and Chloe's sleep. The kitchen was dark, only the faint glow of the streetlight spilling through the window. I had just poured myself a glass of cold water, ready to head back to my room, when I caught the sound of whispers drifting in from the living room. They were still awake. I pressed myself into the shadow of the kitchen doorway, an old instinct, not wanting to interrupt their private talk. At first, I didn't mean to listen, but then Chloe's voice carried over, sharp, urgent, calculating. "The investment's about to collapse. You can't hesitate any longer. This house is the only way out." I froze. The glass of water suddenly felt heavy in my hand. Then I heard my son's voice, Ryan's, tight with strain, holding on to a last, fragile bit of resistance. "But that's my mother's house. It's all she has." A flicker of hope stirred in me, a small warmth in the cold stretch of night. Yes, that's my boy, I thought, the child who always understood me. But then Chloe's voice came again, cold as a blade, slicing that fragile thread of hope in two. "Her health's failing. She's getting confused. Everyone can see it. We're helping her. Just say it's a healthcare power of attorney. She'll sign. She trusts you." Silence followed, a silence so long I could hear my own heartbeat hammering in my chest. So long I nearly held my breath, praying that my son would refuse. And then Ryan spoke again, but it wasn't my son's voice anymore. It was different, hard, distant, the voice of a stranger calculating his next move. "But you're right. Since she got sick, everything's been harder. The medicine, the care. Honestly, Mom's become a burden. A burden." The chill wasn't just in the floor anymore. It shot up my spine, freezing every muscle, every vein. I didn't drop the glass. My hand clamped down so tightly my knuckles turned white. Not a sound escaped me. Quiet as a shadow, I backed away, my steps heavy as stone, retreating to my room like a ghost. That word, burden, it echoed through the pitch-dark bedroom, over and over, until it smothered every other thought in my mind. It carried me back, not in fragments, but in a steady current, down a bitter stream of memory, to another stormy night, one that had already sealed my fate long ago. It was on a rainy night that I lost my husband, Frank. I still remember standing by the window, watching the rain lash against the glass, feeling as if the whole world outside was mourning with me. Ryan, just a thin little boy back then, came and slipped his small hand into mine. In that moment, I knew the only anchor I had was gone, and from then on, I had to become the only anchor for him. I made a promise to myself, to Frank's spirit, that I would never let our boy suffer. And I kept that promise. I worked like a machine that didn't know fatigue. By day, I wore a white apron at the diner, carrying steaming plates of food while my own stomach went empty. By night, I was in deserted office buildings, pushing a vacuum, catching glimpses of my own tired reflection in the glass walls. 2 jobs, sometimes 3 in the summers, and never once did I let Ryan go without. When the acceptance letter came from that prestigious university, I didn't hesitate. I signed those piles of loan papers, numbers dizzying enough to make anyone's head spin. But the smile on his face that first day of college, that was the only guarantee I needed for my investment. And then came this house. With every penny I saved and all those years of paying off debt alone, I bought it. I can still remember the feeling of my hand pressed against the freshly painted wall, the scent of newness still in the air. This wasn't just brick and mortar. It was my triumph, the fortress I built with sweat and sleepless nights. It was the safe harbor I wanted to leave for my son, a place he could always return to, no matter how fierce the storms outside might be. I had always believed I had done the right thing, especially that rainy day a few years back when Ryan came home defeated, broken. Seeing him and Chloe standing at the door with their suitcases, I opened my arms wide without a moment's hesitation. The safe harbor had done exactly what it was meant to do. And for a while, the days that followed felt like the sweetest reward. They cared for me through my illness, the house filled with laughter. We were happy, truly happy, a warm little family of 3. But now, with that word burden tearing at my heart, that picture of happiness began to crack, splintering into pieces. I was stunned to realize all the things I had overlooked before. It had started so sweetly. Your house slowly turned into our house. We really ought to make our house look fresher, Chloe said, as she replaced my old curtains. Then it shifted again, to our place. From now on, let me handle the bills. After all, it's our place, Ryan had said. I thought it was closeness. Only now do I see it was possession. Then came the seeds they planted, whispering that I was old, that my memory was slipping. Mom, you forgot again, Ryan would say with a gentle smile whenever I couldn't find something they themselves had moved. Let us handle it for your safety. Little by little, I started believing it, believing I truly needed their care, believing I had become weak. They rearranged the living room and kitchen, clearing away my old things, the ones tied to memories of Frank. The reasons they gave sounded so kind, so reasonable. This way you can move around more easily, less chance of tripping. You have to be careful at your age. I felt touched by their thoughtfulness, never realizing they were erasing my presence from my own home. The breaking point came just a few months ago. Chloe sat beside me, her hand resting on her stomach, eyes dreamy. Mom, she said, we've been thinking. If there's good news, we'd like to turn your room into the baby's nursery. It's the biggest and sunniest. I froze. That room had been mine for so many years. Seeing my hesitation, Ryan added quickly, You could move into the smaller room on the first floor. It's cozier, and you won't have to climb the stairs. It's better for your health. And I agreed. I packed away decades of memories and carried them into a smaller, tighter room. I did it with quiet joy, thinking I was sacrificing for their happiness, for the future of the family, for the grandchild I longed for. I believed I was helping to build a bigger, warmer home. Now I see the truth. They never wanted to build a family with me in it. They wanted my room, and little by little, my whole house. This cramped little room in the corner isn't coziness. It's the first step in pushing me aside, making me a guest in my own home. And tonight, I finally understand. It wasn't care. It was a plan. A plan built on the weakness they made me believe in, so they could strip everything away. Until the very son I gave my whole life for could let that cruel word slip from his mouth. Burden. I sat there on the edge of my bed in the dark of that small room. Tears slid down my cheeks, but my eyes had changed. The collapse was gone, replaced first by a hollow coldness, and then, slowly, by a sharp, painful flicker of resolve. The next morning, the sun still rose, still cast its false stripes of light across the floor. The coffee Chloe brewed still smelled rich, but to me it felt hollow, foreign. The shock of the night before had settled, leaving not collapse, but a cold, piercing clarity. I had wept for my son all through the night, but when dawn came, I faced a truth even sharper. The boy I once loved had likely died long ago, buried beneath pressure, failure, and the selfishness I had unknowingly nurtured. What remained in my house now, the one who called me a burden, was only a stranger wearing his face. And you can't save a stranger who's lost their way. You can only save yourself.
I realized then my sacrifices hadn't made a man. They had created a monster. From that day on, I became an actress. I wasn't just a slightly forgetful old woman anymore. I was perfectly, convincingly senile. My performance began with small things. I accidentally left the kitchen faucet dripping. I mistakenly poured salt into the sugar jar. When talking, I called Chloe Melanie, then Monica, and shook my head with a sigh. Oh dear, an old woman's memory.
I watched them exchange glances, half pity, half irritation. Chloe would sigh, "Poor thing," and Ryan would nod, "See, you were right. Mom needs us to handle everything." They were falling right into the trap, a trap woven from their own arrogance. In that role, I went back to my old flip phone, the one Ryan once scoffed at as ancient. I waited until they left the house, then locked myself in the bathroom, turned the water on full blast to drown out the sound, and with trembling hands dialed Susan's number. Susan, my dearest friend from the lean years, who had since become a lawyer. When she heard my whisper on the other end, she went quiet for a long beat. All I said was, "I need your help. It's urgent." Susan didn't ask questions. Her reply was steady, certain. "In 30 minutes, I'll call back from a different number. Don't go anywhere." And that's how we began to make a plan. Frank once gave me a tiny digital recorder so I could capture happy memories. Now it had become my weapon. I hid it inside an old hollowed-out book placed neatly on the living room shelf, somewhere on display, yet forgotten. And it did not fail me. It caught their conversations when they thought I was napping upstairs. I heard their plan to mortgage the house for one last big investment, to win back what was lost. They didn't just want a roof over their heads. They wanted a gamble, and the collateral was my life. The plan to sell the house moved quickly once Susan stepped in. She contacted a discreet real estate firm and arranged for a private deal. The hardest part was figuring out how to let the buyers view the house without Ryan and Chloe noticing. The chance came when they excitedly talked about going out to shop for wedding rings. I handed Ryan some cash, smiling as I said, "Go pick out something beautiful, a gift from me ahead of the wedding." They accepted it happily, never realizing I was paying them to leave the house, clearing the way for my plan. That afternoon, I sat in my small upstairs room, holding my breath as the footsteps of strangers creaked across the floorboards below. Each groan of the wood made my heart leap. Only when they left and Susan's message came through saying the buyers had agreed did I finally exhale. Time was running out. Maybe they sensed it because Ryan and Chloe grew impatient. One evening, they came to me, not with irritation, but with faces painted in false sincerity. Ryan held a stack of papers and a pen in his hand. He sat down beside me, his voice so gentle it was chilling. "Mom, these are just authorization papers, so I can handle your health matters, the documents, everything. Things are getting more complicated, and your memory." He let the words trail off. "Think of it as an engagement gift for us, a sign of your trust. From now on, I won't let you struggle anymore." I looked into my son's eyes, searching for some flicker of the boy I once knew. But there was nothing. I took the pen, my hand deliberately trembling. I squinted, pretending I couldn't quite make out the words on the page. Time seemed to stop. I knew this was the final act. Let me think it over," I whispered, my voice frail. "This is such a big decision." I caught the flash of irritation across their faces, quickly masked by sympathetic smiles. They agreed to wait, but I knew I was nearly out of time. The curtain was about to fall. On my last day in that house, I didn't feel sadness, only a strange, hollow emptiness. The moving team Susan arranged worked quietly, efficiently. I took only what was truly mine: old photographs, worn armchair, a few boxes of books and clothes. Ryan and Chloe's belongings, the things that had filled the house these past 2 years, were carefully packed away and sent to storage.
Before I left, I stood alone in the bare living room. On the kitchen table, where we had once gathered together, I placed a single cold key. Beside it, I left a folded slip of paper. Inside, I had written only one line. No greeting, no signature. An engagement gift for the two of you. A burden that walked away on its own. I didn't look back. I stepped through the door, locked it for the last time, and never once turned around. I turned off the old phone. In the small rented apartment, I let myself sink into the quiet. But I knew the storm was coming. Susan had forwarded me the voicemails they left. My new phone buzzed again and again, each vibration another blade pressing into a wound that hadn't healed.
The first message was from Ryan, his voice shaky, uncertain. "Mom, where are you? Please call me back." A few hours later, another message, his voice no longer trembling, but raised in anger. Panic turned to fury. "This is our house. You had no right to do this." When they couldn't reach me, they turned their fire on Susan. I listened to the voicemail Ryan left her, and for the first time in days, real anger rose in me. His voice was laced with threats. "Mrs. Susan, I know my mother is working with you. You're covering up a crime. You're helping a senile old woman abandoning her own children. If you keep standing in our way, we'll show up at your office and expose everything. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of lawyer you really are." Not long after, Susan called me. Her voice was steady, calm, but I could hear the steel beneath it. "Helen, they're threatening to cause a scene at my office. They're cornered now. I think you should face them, just once and for the last time. Meet them here, in my office. It's safe, and I'll be there as a witness." I stayed silent for a long while, staring out the window at the glimpse of a new life waiting for me. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to see their faces again. But I owed Susan, and I owed myself an ending. I had to close this chapter with my own hands. "All right, Susan," I exhaled slowly. One last time. Susan's office was sleek and cold. I sat there, calm in a way that surprised even me. When Ryan and Chloe burst in, they carried themselves like victims. Ryan rushed forward first, his voice thick with blame, his eyes bloodshot. "Mom, why did you sell the house? You don't understand us at all. We could have been so happy together. That was our home." I didn't answer. I only gave Susan a slight nod. She pressed a button on the recorder. And then came their voices, those cruel whispers, calling me confused, plotting to trick me into signing papers, and finally, that one merciless line. "Honestly, Mom, Mom's become a burden." The room froze. The smugness drained from Chloe's face. After the first shock, Ryan, cornered, finally spilled the naked truth. His voice cracked, desperate, laced with self-justification. "You don't get it, Mom. I lost everything. Not just the savings. I owe people nearly 50 grand. This was the last chance. The investment was working. We just needed to sell the house and we'd make it all back. I could buy it back for us. This was our only chance." He stepped closer, as if pitching me a business plan. I wasn't trying to steal. I was trying to save the family. I just needed to mortgage the house, get some capital. 6 months, that's all. There's a project, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'd pay it all back with interest. You don't understand. This was the only way to save us. Chloe jumped in quickly, scrambling to regain ground. "That's right. Everything we did was for the future, to build something for our family." I looked at them. For the first time, I didn't see my son. I saw 2 gamblers desperate to place one last bet. Build for the family. My voice was steady, but ice cold. "Ryan, you'd risk your future on the last piece of security your mother has? On the very house I worked my whole life to buy, just because you've repeated the same mistakes again and again?" I turned to Chloe. "And you talk about building a home? Look at that house.
Does it hold any trace of me anymore? From the curtains, the paint, even the bedroom I lived in for decades, every part of it replaced with what you two preferred. Chloe's face went pale. She dropped her gaze, unable to meet my eyes, but Ryan still clung to his twisted logic. Just trust me this once, Mom. It'll all be fine. We were doing this for you. At last, I rose to my feet. I looked him straight in the eye, my voice calm, each word hammering like a nail sealing the coffin of our bond. For the family? Think back. Did you mention me once just now? Or were you only worried about your investment failing again? I may forget where I've put my keys, Ryan, but I will never forget your voice that night telling Chloe I was a burden. And so, that's what I did. I laid your burden down so you could be free. And more importantly, I freed myself from you.
Ryan stood stunned, as if struck by an invisible blow. All his arguments, his financial justifications, crumbled before a truth that couldn't be reasoned away. Chloe, no longer able to keep her composure, finally broke, sobs choking her. Too late. I didn't look at them again. I turned and walked out, leaving behind the suffocating silence and the wreckage of a future they had destroyed with their own hands. When Susan's office door shut behind me, I felt a release, vast, weightless. I found a small, sunlit apartment in a community for independent seniors. I signed up for an art class, made friends with other women, each carrying their own stories. I was learning, at last, to live for myself. Every now and then, the doorman would mention a young man who came by, standing across the street, staring up at my window for a long while before leaving quietly. I knew it was Ryan. Every so often, a small gift would appear at my door. A pot of azaleas, my favorite flower. A book by the author I've always loved. No card, no note. And then, one day, a letter. No return address. Inside, just a single hurried line, in the handwriting I knew by heart. I'm sorry. I folded the letter and placed it inside an old box. Maybe he's realized his mistakes. Maybe, one day, I'll forgive him. But not today. Today, and tomorrow too, I choose my own peace. The freedom I paid far too high a price to finally claim.